if you're not tracking all these numbers, you can't find answers for anything because you have no idea what you're doing. You're shooting in the dark and you're hoping that your business magically grows someday. Sorry to break it to you, it's not gonna happen unless you know these numbers. In this video, we're gonna talk about how to plan your marketing budget, how to calculate your marketing ROI, and feel like you have control over the numbers finally, okay? So there's a lot of BS out there, and one thing that I think is BS in my opinion is that, oh, well, to plan your marketing budget, you should say, I'm gonna spend 5% on marketing to not be quite as aggressive, or I'm gonna spend 10% on marketing to be a little more aggressive, or to be really aggressive, I'm gonna spend 15% of my total revenue on marketing, right? There are these gurus that come up with these numbers. I don't know where they come up with those numbers, but I don't really agree, because if you're spending 5%, even if it's only 5% on your marketing, why would you do that if that marketing isn't, like, how do you know how effective that marketing is, right? So different marketing has different forms of effectiveness. Different types of marketing are effective in different scenarios. And so it really comes down to what are you spending on marketing, what are you putting into the machine, and then what are you getting out from that machine. So today I'm gonna break it down. It is really easy, really simple stuff, but you have to pay attention, you have to track the numbers to know how to do this, okay? So we're gonna break it down, all right? This is your business right here, okay? So let's say you're a bathroom remodeler. You do two projects per month. Each project ends up being about 20 grand. Okay. So your total sales you're bringing in is 40 grand. Okay. So 40K a month is your total sales you're bringing in. I'm just pulling out an average out of the hat. Okay. So 40 grand, and let's say that on average your gross profit, meaning what you get after you pay for labor and after you pay for materials, let's say your gross profit on each job is, let's say it's 7.5K, okay? So, or yeah, 7.5. So let's say that on two jobs times 20K, and each job you're making $7,500 gross profit. That means out of 40K in revenue, you're getting 15K in gross profit. So again, that 15K after those two jobs is what you're keeping after labor and material. Not after your overhead, not after your salary, just after whatever labor and material it took to do that specific job. Now we get to the overhead. This is your software costs, your office costs, anything you pay for on a regular basis. And as an owner, it should also include your salary. It will also include in the future, or even now, it will include your salaries of your general managers, your project managers, stuff like that. Okay, so you have your overhead. That is a consistent cost. So let's say you're this guy, you're doing two bath projects a month for 20K each, 7.5K gross profit on each, so you're pulling 15K gross profit. That means that if you are paying yourself a salary, and you have office costs and other regular costs that you're paying for, that amounts to 15K, that means you're just canceling out that 15K and your actual net profit is zero. So you're not really making any money at this point, okay? Now, if that gross sales were to go up, so let's say you did 3 projects in a month and that was 60K, that would make this 22.5K, and that would mean you're now bringing in 7.5K in net profit each month, okay? So a lot of you guys, you're right here, okay? But you don't even necessarily know you're right here. You just kind of know, okay, I'm bringing in 40K a month. It feels like I'm making some money, but then the money always kind of goes back out. You need to start tracking these numbers, because if you don't at least track these numbers, you're gonna have no clue what you're supposed to be spending on advertising, where you're supposed to be spending it. So do this first. Figure out, on my average kitchen job or average bath job, what is the revenue? I know there's a big range, okay? But at least what is the most common job I get, what is the ticket price, and then what is the gross on that, okay? What is the gross margin after labor and materials? Not after I pay myself, but after labor and materials. And then figure out your overhead, and now you'll have this baseline that you can start working from, because check this out. A lot of people that are at this level, they're like, okay, I feel like I'm making a little bit of money, but I don't want to spend anything on marketing because I'm trying to also save money that I have in the bank and, not do anything crazy. But check this out, right? Let's say that you decide to start spending 3 grand a month on marketing, okay? It's like, whoa, that's a little risky for only this much gross profit. All right, but just hear me out. So you start spending 3 grand a month, and let's say you get 30 leads through that. Now let me ask you something. Out of 30 leads, do you think you can close one sale? Do you think you can close just one bathroom job or one kitchen job out of 30 leads? Probably. You probably can do it, okay? Now, if you're not calling the leads back and you're not, following up after you send the estimate and whatnot, then don't expect to sell anything ever. But if you are decent at communication and you're willing to be decent at communication, yes, you can typically close one job out of 30 leads, all right? So one job or more, right? But let's just take the bare minimum. Let's just say it's one job. All right, and remember, our gross profit out of that one job, on average, is going to be about $7,500, like we talked about here. So that gross profit is $7,500. Okay. So now, watch what happens. Now, let me find my eraser here. All right. So now our total sales, now that we have another 20K project per month, is 60K, okay? And now our gross is 3 times 7,500, which is 22.5K. So 22.5K. And our overhead is still the same, because you don't necessarily have to bump up your salary just because you have the extra project. You don't have to necessarily buy more software just because you have the extra project. You have the extra project, and now your overhead is exactly the same. So you spent $3,000 on marketing, so you did incur an extra cost, which is your marketing. But guess what? Your gross profit is 22.5K minus 15K in overhead minus 3K. So we're back down to, let me grab my phone so I can do the math. One sec. All right, so we have 22.5 minus 15 minus 3. So now guess what? Now instead of being at a 0 net profit, you are, what was the number again? You are at a 4.5K net profit. That is almost $5,000 that you're now taking home because you took the leap and decided to start spending money on your marketing. Okay? So just because you're only at just because you're breaking even, that doesn't mean, oh, well, I can't afford marketing, because marketing produces results back, but it has to be the right type of marketing, okay? If you are spending money on, like if you go and dump 10 grand into a website, websites are typically a good return on investment, but it takes months and months and sometimes even years to actually start recouping that investment back, because slowly people will trickle in, find you on SEO, find your site, and you'll have people reach out, in the coming months and years. So if you are just getting into marketing, I would highly recommend doing something that's going to start generating leads right away, and generating a decent amount of leads. So this could be your Thumbtack, Home Advisor, Angie's List. I know people complain about them all the time and say, oh, well, they sell your information to multiple contractors. Listen, just beat the other contractors, right? Business is a game. If you can solve the problem, if you can figure out how to respond faster to those leads and respond more often to those leads than other contractors, you will still close some of those deals. And don't pay attention to how hard it is, right? Because if it's a hard process to call but you can always hire someone else for that process, right? But what you want to pay attention to is the numbers, okay? What are you spending? How many jobs are you getting? And then what is your gross on your jobs? Because listen, if you have a smaller ticket, like let's say you are trying to get like kitchen tune-ups or some kind of smaller ticket item, and your gross profit is only going to be 1 or 2K, either you need to charge drastically more or you need to drastically reduce what it costs per job, okay? And I'm going to show you one of the ways you can do that. But for now, let's keep our gross at 7,500. And this is another thing you need to start tracking. You need to start tracking your leads, how many appointments you're setting, how many jobs you're getting from your marketing each month. I'm not talking about from referrals. You should have a spreadsheet where you have like a baseline of here's how much money I'm typically making from referrals, just so you kind of know what that's going to be. But for your marketing specifically, you need to track leads, sets, and jobs, okay? And here's why. So let's say you close one job out of 30 leads. It's like, okay, great, well that kind of worked, right? But how do you know if there might be a better marketing program out there than the one you're using, right? How do you actually start tracking the data and looking for ways to improve that and get 2 or 3 jobs out of that, right? So let's look at this. Let's say out of that marketing, you had 30 leads, and let's say you had 10 sets, okay? And out of those 10 sets, and you went out and gave the estimate, and you only got one of those jobs, okay? This means that out of 30 leads, you have a 33.3% book rate, and you have a 10% close rate, okay? So book rate, or set rate, and then close rate. So to start improving your marketing system, what you can do is say, all right, how do I follow up with people more often? How do I call them more quickly? How do I, how do I follow up more after I send the estimate? And then you can start improving those numbers, right? So let's say you get that set rate up to 15%, and this is something you can Google. Once you know these numbers, you can Google, how do I lower my overhead? You can Google, how do I increase my gross profit? You can Google, how do I get more leads? And you can find answers to all those questions. But what you won't find answers to is if you're not tracking all these numbers, you can't find answers for anything because you have no idea what you're doing. You're shooting in the dark and you're hoping that your business magically grows someday. Sorry to break it to you, it's not going to happen unless you know these numbers, okay? So back to this. So 30 leads, 15 sets, and then let's say you get so good at communication when you go do the estimate, you get so fast at producing that estimate, and you get so good at following up on that estimate. Maybe you set up a sales process, maybe you say, hey customer, rather than me sending you an email so you can ghost me, how about we set up another call where I'll come back to your home, I'll show you the 3D design of what we just created for you, and you can decide if you want to move forward right now. All right, let's say if we do all that stuff and our job rate out of 15 sets, let's say we close, instead of 10%, let's say we close 20% now, and 20% of 15 is, what is that? That'd be 3, right? I think that's 3. Yeah, 20% of 15 is 3. So now, guess what we just did? Initially, we had 40K in total sales. Now we have 3 additional $20,000 projects per month on average, which is an extra 60,000. So now we're bringing home, wait. We had 2 projects before, 40,000. So now we're up to 100K a month in sales, okay? And 5 total projects times 7,500 in gross profit. Let's see what that is. 7,500 times 3. So that's 22.5K in gross from our marketing. 22.5K, and then plus we have an extra 15K there, so 22.5 plus an extra 15, that's just from business that was already coming in, is 37.5 in gross, 37.5K in gross. Our overhead is still the same because again, we didn't have to hire, you should be able to do this with just you. We didn't have to hire a project manager or anything like that yet. Maybe at this point you'd want to start looking into an office girl, okay, that can, or guy, that can call these leads and book appointments for you, okay? So let's say that costs 3.5K a month, all right? So now we're up to 6.5K, wait, hold on. So our overhead was 15K, so now it's 18.5K, all right? And our marketing is still at 3K because we didn't have to spend more on marketing. We just tracked our numbers like a business owner and figured out how to make those numbers work better for us, okay? So our marketing is still 3K. Our overhead went up a little bit because we had to hire the office person. So now let's see what net we're left with, okay? So now we're left with 37.5 gross minus 18.5 minus 18.5 minus 3. Now we're left with 16 grand, 16K in net profit. Do you want to have 16K net profit each month? I just showed you exactly how to do it. Now, as you start getting more jobs, obviously, if you need to buy more trucks to hire more employees or something like that, yes, obviously some of these numbers are, the overhead is going to go up a little bit, but this is the formula. This is what you need to look at to have control over your business and know what needs to be spent on marketing. And you can track this leads, sets, and jobs. You can track that by different marketing sources. So you can start to look at, okay, well, how do I, what is the best marketing source, and what marketing source can I spend $3K and get 5 jobs versus spending $5K on a marketing source and only getting 2 jobs, right? You want to track all that, okay? And once you get this down, once you start tracking that, you can finally have control over your business because you know exactly which numbers you need to work on. All right, thanks so much for watching the video. Hopefully it was helpful. Subscribe to the channel, smash that notification bell. We're going to be doing new content at least once a week, and I'll see you in the next video.